Hello, and welcome to the next edition of How the Hell Did I Get Here with Meg and Rachel. Thanks for joining us. Today we have Brian Lassiter. Brian was elected president and CEO of the Performance Excellence Network, also known as, or formerly known as, Minnesota Council for Quality, in the summer of 2001. Brian has worked with hundreds of organizations in a variety of industries to help them improve their performance and competitiveness. Brian has served nearly 25 years in various roles with the Baldrige Performance Excellence Program, including Examiner, Senior Examiner, Alumni Examiner, and on the board of Overseers from 2012 to 2015.
Sounds kind of scary, Brian.
Board of Overseers. I know. Welcome. Thank you for joining us, fellow Overseer.
Well, thank you.
Overlord. Sounds like Overlord.
Yeah, right. It sounds much more impressive than it actually is, but thank you for that.
When I first read it, what I really thought of was in the Hunger Games. They're like the guys
up on
that run the games.
Lords,
I was like,
or President Snow and the
Yeah, exactly. I think that would be Overlord, not Overseer. Who knows? Yeah. Nobody's died as a result of my career, I don't think.
All right. Well,
that's good.
Your secret's safe with us.
Yeah.
Cool.
Don't tell anybody. Well, hey, thank you for joining us and taking a little time.
My pleasure. I think this will be fun and really appreciate the invitation.
Yeah. Our first really, of course, question, because we're simple human beings, we like simple things, is really the theme of the show, which is tell us your moment where you kind of looked up and you thought, how the hell did I get here? Good, bad, or otherwise?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And obviously it makes a great question for a podcast, right? A great title for a podcast.
Always interesting stories.
Right, exactly. And I'm not sure mine's all that interesting, but it gets interesting. So I'll give you the boring 20 seconds, and then maybe I'll get to where other people might find it more interesting. My first couple of jobs out of college were pretty traditional. I worked for a big bank in St. Louis, and then Waterhouse Consulting, before it was Waterhouse Coopers, I think it's called now, also in St. Louis. And then I moved to Minnesota in 1994 to take a job at the St. Paul Companies, which is now Travelers Insurance. So and then back into consulting a couple of other times. So the first decade or so of my career was pretty traditional, pretty boring. It was financial services and consulting. No offense to you two who consult.
Oh, I get that. Yeah, it's totally cool.
Yeah, all good. But my moment of truth, kind of the twist, was while I was at St. Paul, I was exposed to the Baldrige framework. And Rachel, I know you know a little bit about it.
I do.
Yep. And if people don't know what it is a management system. It's a system of 7 categories that continue to change and evolve over time to represent what the best of the best organizations in the country are doing to achieve high performance. And so I was exposed to that in the mid-90s. And I thought, oh my gosh, where has this been my whole career? Because it just made sense. It's how organizations fit together. It's a systems view of organizations. So I volunteered for a few years with what became my employer. We were called the Minnesota Council for Quality, now Performance Excellence Network. And then for a few years at the national level, and then I jumped in headfirst in 2001 into the role I've got now, without a salary. That's the interesting part of the story.
Oh.
Yeah,
You
I know.
really
My wife said that too. Yeah, whoa.
My wife said that too. I bet she did.
Right. Yeah. So, well, the story behind that is our organization was heavily funded by the state of Minnesota for many years, and that was cut, depending on the year, 50 to 70% of the budget came from the state, and that was cut to zero. And that, along with a challenging conference and some other factors, led us into a period of real challenge. And when the board approached me in 2001, they said, we'd like you to become president. I was the 6th person on their list, which was, happy to be in the top 10, I guess. First 5 said, no way, I'm not taking this thing. And I told them, and I was fully employed somewhere else. And I said, I will spend 6 months as a volunteer, kind of part-time executive director president, just to see if there's a mission worth preserving. And so I talked to well over 100 customers and stakeholders and volunteers and so forth, and found that indeed what we do is so critically important to the state and really the region that I jumped in and started to rebuild the organization.
Wow. So when you started no money, where is it now? Where have you shepherded your organization to?
Yeah, well, thanks for asking that. It's been 19, almost 20 years now. So that's how
Shocking
the,
fast the time goes by.
oh my gosh. And we don't age at all.
Yeah, but no, we look exactly the same.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, over the last 20 years, it's been a fun journey, and I still feel like we're just getting started. We've grown considerably. When I came in 2001, we had 17 members, organizations that we were serving, and now we have over 200 all over the region, Minnesota and both North and South Dakota, and all different types of organizations, businesses and healthcare and schools and nonprofits and governmental agencies. And so we're helping them achieve better performance, helping them diagnose their systems, their organizations, and find where they need to focus their precious and valuable resources and energy to improve, and then bringing them resources to help them do it.
What do you think has been the biggest change over the last 20 years in performance, areas of performance?
You know, I'd probably answer that question differently a year ago if you were to ask me than today. My answer would have been that the changes are fairly subtle year to year. Over time, you look at what drives an excellent organization today versus 5-10 years ago, there are some noticeable differences. Investing in systematic ways of innovating, investing in workforce and customer engagement rather than just satisfaction, little nuances like that. But boy, today it's all about rapid response and being agile and resilient as organizations and so forth. And we've all experienced COVID and the pandemic. So I think the changes are a lot more, a lot quicker now than they were the last decade or so.
Mm-hmm. How do you think your member institutions and maybe at large are responding?
Generally well. It's all over the board. I mean, some organizations have done quite well. Thank you very much. I mean, they're having their best year ever. And others are on the ropes. When your market completely evaporates or what you're used to doing is gone, you really have to be innovative or shift gears rapidly to try to hold on to things. And I think most are in the middle somewhere, that they've had to adjust and maneuver with challenge, but are making it, and hopefully we'll crawl out of this at some point. But there'll be a lot of organizations that don't survive, and this is truly a crisis, as you both know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, there's we've seen a lot of COVID casualties, especially, well, not necessarily especially, but in just certain areas where the main source of revenue falls through the floor, and there's only so far you can go with support and programs and that kind of thing. So it's been pretty crazy. We have had our biggest year ever. Because this is what we do. We focus on change and agility and understanding your people and how to get them through change. So we definitely have had our best year ever. 2021 is looking even better. So far.
That's good. And three data points makes a trend. So good for you. I hope it continues.
Yeah, hey, I get it. We know. Hopefully it's a long-term trend. Hopefully you get several data points in a row here.
Absolutely. Well, your work's so critically important. Organizations need help these days to navigate through it.
Yeah, well, and there's a lot of mergers and acquisitions going on too, which I'm sure you're seeing in your people. And that's really where we're seeing a big uptick, is where people are looking to grow and grow the ones that are forward looking and are really leaning into it are growing and buying companies that may be struggling. So there's that aspect too, which a lot of people have never done. And
yeah,
it would be fascinating to see how people move forward.
Yeah, I think you're right. Mergers and acquisitions, different business models, just different ways of operating. You think about the old phrase, think outside the box. I think we've all been forced to change the way we think about things. And there'll be some good outcomes because of this crisis, right? Never waste a good crisis. There's a lot of great new ways of doing business that we would have never thought about before.
Yeah, never waste a good crisis, building the plane as we're flying it. Those are some pretty standard lines these days, right?
All of the cliches have come out this year. That's right.
That's right. Well, one of the things, of course, that we do with our guests is that you took our Helix assessment and you were an organizer, which most people that listen know, but for those that might be new, organizers are self-driven, which means that they like to process information on their own. They like to organize chaos, usually kind of get their head around it first, and then they'll go to the team. They appreciate the value of team, but they like to process on their own. And they're also order tolerant, which means that you appreciate structure more than perhaps chaotic people like us might appreciate. And so interesting, it made a lot of sense because knowing your, especially now that I know your how the hell story, your love of the Baldrige Award is very, it's, and people that listen don't know it quite as well as I do, but it's very specific and detail oriented. So, how do you think that sort of those natural tendencies of yours sort of led into what you're doing? And frankly, maybe even you had to push out of that sort of order tolerance quite a bit over the years, I would guess.
Yeah, no, I'm not surprised by my helix type. Organizer definitely fits me, although I'm right on the line, right? Between
right on the line where you're team driven. So the other side of that line is team driven. So you're kind of right there, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, which means I really haven't decided yet. I probably can change given the circumstances. And I think that's true. I actually like chaos and I like complexity and I like a little bit of unpredictability, but I am an organizer. I love, I see in patterns. I'm kind of a systems thinker. I like appreciating how things work. I definitely am a planner, gravitating towards structure.
Like 3 data points make a trend.
Right, which normal people don't say.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, that's right. Does it make me abnormal? I'm not sure, but yes, it does reflect my
You're an
type.
organizer.
It makes you an organizer.
Very true. Very true. Well, and I think I tend to try to make sense of what's out there, and that is probably a typical pattern for an organizer. And that's what Baldrige does within an organization. All of those processes and systems are happening within an organization, but whether or not you appreciate it or whether or not you try to make sense of it and try to figure out what's working and what's not, so that you can improve what's not, is really what our business is all about and what I gravitate towards.
Mm-hmm. And so it's interesting to me too, to think about what other organizations might be drawn to the Baldrige Award. It's like us thinking about, let's see, if we brought you into my company, brought the Baldrige Award into my company, I would not want to spend all of the time and detail to actually feed into it. And even if it gave me great results, I just would be like, wouldn't suit. So it is interesting to me. Do you see patterns in the types of companies or organizations that respond to the Baldrige Award, like more, if you think about it in that way, are they more organizer-y companies? Or are they companies generally that just need more structure? Or what do you think is the draws people to that?
I don't know if I've ever thought about that, Rachel. That's a good question. I would say that yes, the types of leaders that gravitate towards this framework probably are more natural organizers.
Mm-hmm.
Think in terms of process and systems and so forth. But I think I've seen a lot of creative, entrepreneurial, very innovative companies also use this framework. Because even the most creative organizations still have to have patterns, and you know that. And there's still systematic ways of accomplishing things because you want predictability on the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you do have complete chaos. So it is a balance. It's never one or the other. I think you can still benefit from the innovation and the chaos within the context of a systematic framework.
Yeah, we always argue that you can't really have one in isolation, right?
That's
to your
right.
point, you have to have the people that are always challenging the pattern, and then you have to have the pattern to get the things done. And that's really where companies and organizations really thrive, when they can get that balance right for their outcomes that they're wanting.
Yeah, absolutely. Like everything, it's a balance. It's not either or. Agree.
That makes it so hard, but fun, I guess.
Yes. Yes. Hard, but fun. That's kind of the space we operate in.
That's right. That's right.
Well, Brian, thank you so much for joining us. It was
my pleasure.
Yeah, it was really great.
Are we already done yet? How the hell did we finish?
I know, it's so fun.
How the hell did this happen?
I know, it's so fast.
Oh, well, I know. That's how it feels for all of us every time. We're like, okay, we're supposed to be the timekeepers of the show, so we have to keep it whatever. So
I'm less good at the timekeeping.
Yeah, I know. This
Yeah,
is why
I could predict that.
Open and close, because I'm
As an organizer, I think we're about 30 seconds past, by the way. No.
Okay. Not that you noticed, you just have.
No, right.
I don't have a timer sitting here or anything.
This is internal clock.
Yeah, right.
Yes, it's sorted.
All right. Well, thank you again, sir, for joining us. It was great to hear your story. Thank you for sharing it with our guests. And until we see you next time on How the Hell Did I Get Here? Lead powerfully,
change the world.